Hi friends, I promised you that I would do my review of 50 Shades of Grey, so here goes, having a cup of coffee and trying to get my thoughts together for it. Now for anybody that intends going to the film, kind of fast forward through the bit that's to do with the plot. I don't want to spoil it for you, but it was an interesting film. I have read the books about 2 years ago. There are 3 books. And the film is basically based just on the first novel. So that's the one I will talk about. Does it stick closely to the books? It actually does, except that the books were a little more hardcore, we'll call it. The movie is really 2 hours of soft porn, not much of a plot, very little serious plot in the whole film. Now, the film was inspired by the Twilight movies that we all remember, these vampire characters flying through the air. And it was an author called E.L. James that actually wrote this novel on the Twilight fan club page, using the names of the Twilight characters, Jacob and the others. But it became quite successful, so she changed the names and she actually published it, I think, on her own website, and became more successful, so it got converted into a book. Now for the 2 main characters. The girl, her character name is Anastasia Steel, and she is actually, Dakota Johnson is her real name. She is a 20-year-old student, just graduating from college. I think she did a literary degree. And she's in Seattle visiting her friend, and her friend is smothered with a terrible cold. Her friend did journalism and has an interview arranged with Christian Steel, who is played by Jamie Dornan. And she can't go to the interview as she is so ill, and she asks Anastasia to go in her place. So Anastasia dutifully goes off with her list of questions, an innocent little 20-year-old looking more like a 16-year-old, hair tied back in a messy ponytail, mismatched blouse and short skirt and black tights and little cardi, and into this posh building with all these extremely couture designed clothing secretaries, and looked totally out of place, of course, and felt totally out of place, and actually stumbled into the room for the interview with Christian Grey. He is immediately taken with her. She explains why she's there, that her friend isn't well. So he goes ahead with the interview, and he gets more and more interested in her in a sort of intense way, just staring at her. And there's one real cheesy line in it where he asks if she has a boyfriend, and she says, "Me?" She said, "Just look at me." And he says, "I am." And he gives her a really intense stare. Anyway, the interview goes ahead in a very uncomfortable way for her. And she doesn't really show any inkling of liking the man. Then she goes back to the apartment to her friend, and her friend Googles Mr. Christian Grey and shows how powerful and wealthy and hot, as she calls it herself, he is. And her interest is sparked. Curious. Anyway, as the plot continues, Mr. Grey decides to pursue her, and he turns up at her place of work. She works in a hardware store, and of course he starts buying things like cable ties and duct tape, and she sort of said, "Oh, these are very suitable for a murderer." And then he showers her with gifts and presents, and his chauffeur delivers laptops and things like that to her, so she is interested. Really, the pursuit, and even he admits it himself, the pursuit is wrong, because she is totally not suitable for him. He was very badly treated as a young child, and he was adopted at the age of 4 by a very wealthy family. And then at the age of 15, he was actually seduced by one of his mother's social friends, who was a dominatrix and who introduced him to BDSM, bondage and domination and sadoism and all these things. But that and his early childhood abuse seemed to have really twisted his character. He was her subservient and he would obey everything she did. So then when he himself matured, he still has this woman as a friend, but he decided that this is the way that he wanted relationships. So the only way he can have a relationship with somebody is by hurting them, basically, tying them up. And he claims that they will get more pleasure from it. And he explained all of this to Anastasia. It actually makes no sense that a man, well, a 25-year-old man who is interested in BDSM would pursue an innocent young girl who obviously isn't interested in any of this or has no experience. And I think what they were trying to imply was that he was sort of falling in love with her, but at the same time could only have a relationship with her through this bondage and domination. So that basically is the plot, pursuit of Anastasia. So he also tracks her down to a nightclub where she's celebrating her graduation, and when he finds out she's drinking, he can't tolerate this at all, so he arrives and finds her inebriated and brings her back to his place. Now, she reveals that she's a virgin, so he said he's going to sort that out, which he does in a very loving way, which is the only bit of romance in the whole film. And he actually sleeps with her in the bed, and she is thrilled. The next day, he explains to her that this is the last time that he will actually sleep in the bed with her, that their relationship will be, she'll be basically servant. Now, there isn't too much sexual violence in the film, which is a good thing. He does produce, and he shows us a few whips. We get into the red room and we get a good look around. There's a lot of chains and ties and leather straps and different implements lying around the place. To me, now it looks like a torture chamber. And I think Anastasia wasn't too keen on the idea either. Again, she's being manipulated the whole way through the film. She's being slowly molded into what Christian wants. So, no, not too much sexual violence in it, but she is very upset when she finds that this contract he has, part of the contract is that he will sleep in his own room and she will sleep in hers. When she enters this red room, she must kneel down and face the door and not look at him, keep her head bowed, and call him yes sir and no sir, and follow instructions with very little speech unless she's permitted. Very dominating altogether, and also there wasn't meant to be any dates because he doesn't consider it as a proper relationship. So the one way he did make a change was he did bring her on a date. He brought her on a helicopter ride, and so in that way we can see that his character is sort of trying to change towards the normal relationship, but still he seems stuck back in his own little world. She goes along with it. She doesn't tell her friend about his quirkiness, but she does go along with it, and that's the part that worries me. She doesn't seem, well, her character doesn't seem to be able to have any mind of her own. She is either swayed by his power, his domination, his wealth, but there doesn't really seem to be a spark of love between the two characters in the film. So it's not from bad acting. Anastasia Steel, Dakota Johnson, she's a brilliant actress, and she is actually far superior to Jamie Dornan in her abilities in this film. And there are some terribly severe close-ups, as I mentioned already. A young innocent girl, absolutely devoid of makeup and really, really close. You can see every little scratch on her skin at times. And it must have been a very, very difficult film to make. Film is actually shot very beautifully. I must say the camera work is excellent, and there are some beautiful shots, like in the director's room where they're discussing the contract. The lighting, everything about how the film is shot and made is gorgeous. It's just seriously lacking in plot. It also has a lot of cheesy dialogue. Now, my thoughts on the film, to finish up, I feel, apart from the very good camera work and the excellent shooting of the film, I feel it gives a very bad message. It gives a message to young girls, number one, that to have a very wealthy, dominating man pursue them is the bee's knees, and it's their ultimate dream. It also gives the impression that it's okay to allow yourself to be manipulated by someone else, which it is not. This is supposed to be about a very intelligent, well-grounded young girl, but who has no mind of her own. At the end, she's just a young, innocent girl who wants to fall in love and who wants a relationship and who wants a boyfriend. And she discovers at the end of the film, this is not what Christian Grey wants. I beg your pardon, I'm calling him Mr. Steel. Christian Grey doesn't appear to want a normal relationship, as we call it. So it worries me that young girls watching this film would think that it is the norm for young girls to be manipulated, to be persuaded to do things they don't want to do, to be persuaded to try new things, and to be devoid of the ability to say no, which I did not like. I don't like the message it's giving. Now, I found the same when I read the novels. I did not like this aspect of the total thing. She was just manipulated from day one. The whole way through the novel, it was all on his terms. And it's the message that's coming across to young girls that this is okay. No, it's not okay. You have a mind of your own. You're two people. You're supposed to be two equal partners in a relationship, deciding between the two of you what's good for both of you and what will not hurt either person, either physically or mentally, because there is a horrible scene towards the end where she asks him to inflict his worst punishment on her so that she could say whether she'd sign the contract or not, to see if she can endure what's the worst, whether she would be able to go ahead. So he's after getting a disturbing phone call about his business. He's quite angry, so he actually does get a whip, and he beats her on the bum 6 times. Now, I thought this was actually my worst scene in the whole film. I found he was beating her out of anger. She was terribly upset. He insisted that she count each of the blows. There were just six sharp blows, and I mean, where is the pleasure in any of that? So she realizes this also, and she gets up and she says, that is the last time that you will ever touch me. And she walks out, gets into the lift, and that's the end of the film. So it's only at the very last minute, 2 minutes of the film, that she actually stands up to him and says, no, this is not what I want. So in that way, I would have preferred if the film didn't end at that point. I know part 2 will continue on with the story, and we will see the next, and I won't spoil it for you by letting you know what happens, but there's probably a part 3 to come as well, unless they put part 2 and 3 in together. So to cut a long story short, what did I think of the film? Beautifully shot, lovely lighting, great acting by Dakota Johnson, a little bit serious by Jamie Dornan, but the character called for that, so it's sort of difficult to say. No spark between the two of them, though. No, but maybe there wasn't meant to be either. There's that domination thing there the whole time, so there's a kind of a distance, and bad message to be giving young people, that maybe this is the norm and this is what they should be doing. You do not inflict pain on anybody else and expect to get pleasure out of it. It is the total wrong idea to give to young people. So that's my review on 50 Shades of Grey. I don't know whether you'll agree with me or not. I'd be interested to find out in the comments, any of you who have seen the film, whether you agree or disagree. So please let me know, and thanks for watching.